The best coaches I know are obsessed with one thing, and that's getting better. And if you want to change the most lives, you've got to keep doing the work yourself. My name is Paul O'Need, and I've spent the last 20 years learning, pushing limits, asking better questions, challenging assumptions, and helping coaches become the best version of themselves so that they can do the same for the people they serve. This is the Coach's Corner University podcast. Let's raise the bar. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and today I'm joined by Dave Osborn for like the third or fourth time. I think third.
I get a punch on my card after this one, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Dave and I were just talking about the Arnold Sports Festival, which happened this past weekend, and how important it was for me to both attend in person to coach one of my clients, and then also to just, because I coached him on Thursday, and then the expo runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I made it a point to stay simply because of networking connection. Like, it's the one time a year where all the people in the fitness industry are in one place. And if you can make it, it's a great opportunity to form new relationships. And for all the people that you have relationships online, to galvanize those in person. And I was just telling Dave how, I think as online coaches, especially, we keep ourselves in a box. Like, I could exist within the 12 by 12 of this office indefinitely, posting on social media, connecting with people, but there's just something like special about that in-person connection. And I think you do it really well because you guys attend so many meets in person.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and that's something we look forward to so much, just because, it's kind of similar when you own a gym and you train the same clients, week in, week out, month after month, year after year, is you kind of just get used to your little space.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing I love more than for my lifters than for us to pack up as a team and go compete and go see other spaces.
Mm-hmm.
It gets them more involved with the community, and it allows us to have, okay, now all of a sudden we have more referees and people invested in hosting our own meets, but also like it just grows relationships in the sport. And I can't count how many times I would meet someone at a random meet, and then 5 years later, I'm still running into this person. And it's a really cool thing, to be able to look back on how far you've come in that time and where, you are at, where the people you meet are at, and just the growth that can occur with that. But it's my favorite part of the sport is being able to go to competitions, meet new people, right? And just start, the beginnings of those new relationships.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to highlight, though, is I think especially in the age of social media, people approach networking from a what can I get from this situation?
Sure.
So they enter into a networking opportunity thinking, what value can I extract from this? How can I leverage so-and-so's notoriety, or how can I take advantage of this person's audience, versus what can I add to their life? What
Yeah.
value do I have? And maybe speak to this, because I know that when you attend these meets and you're with your team, you're not just helping your team.
Oh, that's a great point, Paul. Yeah. And you, just as you were talking about like being focused on like what I get out of it or anything, like that's never been my focus. My focus has always been, how can I make the sport better? What
Mm-hmm.
can I do to contribute and help others? I think back to my first meet and just being wide-eyed, having no idea what we're doing the first time. And I still run into that at competitions all the time. So I try and do what was done for me, which is a coach came up, helped me out, right? Got bars loaded for us, kind of showed us the system, invited us to work in with his group. And that's the same thing we do as a team, is we know like, okay, if this warm-up room is going really well and functioning tight and everyone's on time with their warm-ups, everyone here is going to have a great competition. And that's what we're all about, is making it so everyone has a great competition. And so whatever kind of charge we need to take in that and facilitating that for others, right, we're going to do, because we know the difference it makes when people aren't last minute having to strip a bar with 4 reds on it just to take their last warm up kind of thing. Right. And that happens when people just come into a warm up room and just think about themselves. And I've been really privileged to be in a lot of great warm up rooms with a lot of great coaches and lifters, and that's not how they act. And
Absolutely.
everyone's invested in one another's success. And when you go to a competition like that and you compete in federations where that's the case, like that's going to be your best case for performance. Every lifter there is going to have their best day because they don't have that anxiety in the warm-up room or feeling lost or holding up other people.
Yeah. And I mean, you could look at that from two ways. You could look at it with a fixed mindset and say, well, I don't want to help anyone because I want to beat them. Or
Sure.
you could look at it from a growth mindset and say, I want to beat you, but I want to beat you on your best day.
Exactly. Like, when like you get handed a gift, and it's the same thing with a victory, right? Like sometimes a victory comes from bad attempt selection on your competition, right?
Yep.
Or they get hurt or something like that. And, I try and lead from a place with my lifters that we don't want to win like that.
Yeah.
We want to win where everyone knows
Yeah. I mean,
why you
I beat
won. You made a
Kevin Oak.
statement.
Yeah. I beat Kevin Oak in a meet at hybrid because Kevin Oak took a 120 kilo bench press.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So I'm gonna hold that win for sure
No, that
over time.
counts,
I'm gonna remind
right?
him.
He wanted to
I'm
cement
gonna
that
text
world
him.
record squat. Yeah.
I'm gonna text him tomorrow and be like, "Hey, dude, remember when I beat you at hybrid?"
Remember back when?
But and I think there's parallels to like if I can speak on the business side, is that
Yeah.
if I go into a relationship thinking about what value can I add for this person, right? What do I bring to the table? Number one, it's going to be more genuine, and I'm going to
Yeah.
actually be of benefit to that person. But you might think, okay, well, I want something out of this. Yeah, probably you do, right? Like when I'm networking at the Arnold, I'm thinking about, okay, cool, this person might be a great podcast guest, or this person might be able to connect me with this person, and these are thoughts in my head. But ultimately, I also want to be of service to them because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, say that connection or that extraction of value from the connection isn't there. Okay. Let's say for whatever reason,
Sure.
at least I left that person with a positive impression of me, and then they will speak positively about me elsewhere, and that will
Yeah.
open up doors. I think of like,
Absolutely.
I mentioned on the podcast a couple episodes ago that I secured my first speaking engagement that I'm being paid for, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But that connection is because I met Joe Connolly 15 years ago at the CSCCA conference because we were the only two motherfuckers training at 6 a.m. And we've
Yes.
kept in touch ever since, just periodically messaging each other or following each other on social media. I posted a picture of myself the way I look now. He's like, bro, we've had Joe on the podcast a couple of times, and he's mentioned
Yes.
every year he does something hard. And this year, his hard thing was he wanted to get peeled. And he's like,
Ooh.
dude, you're jacked. You've gotten peeled. I want you to get me peeled. It's like, cool, let's do it. So we did it. And through that, we fostered a really good friendship. And
Yes.
guess what? He's now the head strength coach at ASU. They're hosting a conference, and he asked me to be the keynote. So, like, I didn't go into that initial meeting with Joe thinking, oh man, this guy's the head strength coach at South Carolina. I need a
Right.
job. I need to. No, man, I just wanted to fucking squat with the guy.
Yeah. Well, and you respect someone's knowledge base and like, oh, this is going to be an awesome person to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
train with. I'm probably going to learn something. Like there's that connection and that mutual respect with a peer and just kind of recognizing like this is so mutually beneficial for us to meet up
Yep.
and just be able to train together.
I'll also say too, do not be afraid of making a fool out of yourself. That is,
I'm great at that.
so what I mean by that is never be afraid to go introduce yourself to somebody. Even if you think that person is super famous, or maybe you're thinking like, oh, he's going to think I'm fanboying over him or her. That's not a thing.
No.
Just go up, introduce yourself. There was an instance this weekend. Eric Bugenhagen is a very prominent influencer in the fitness space. He's honestly fucking hilarious. Great guy. Not, to be fair, not the kind of guy I would ever collaborate with.
Sure.
But he was filming with Joey and with John Heck.
With John.
And Joey and I arrived together, and Joey had assumed that I met Eric before. So there was
Yeah.
no introduction.
Oh.
And then and then about an hour goes by and I'm like, fuck this. I walk over to him, I'm like, yo, dude, it's probably awkward by now, but my name's Paul. I'm friends with Joey. I think he thought we had met before, but
Sure.
this is who I am. And he's like, oh, dude, that's so funny. I thought you were just one of these like, because at the Arnold you get these like hanger
Oh,
honors kind
yeah,
of
hang
people,
on. Sure.
especially with people like Eric, who's like,
Yeah.
a couple 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. And Joey was like, "Oh shit, you guys have never met?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, Paul's one of my best friends." Blah blah blah. So is I that could have been super awkward had I never introduced
Yeah.
myself. And I was like, "No, fuck this. I'm just going to go introduce myself and make it not awkward."
Yeah. And you kind of got to that point where you recognize, like, I'm going to continue to feel anxious
Yep.
and not super comfortable around this until I take action. And you took
And
action.
and I'll be honest, you will regret it. So I don't know if I've told this story before. Oh, I did. I told it with Dave Tate when he was on the podcast. But I had the opportunity to introduce myself and meet John Meadows at Elite one day,
Oh, okay.
and I never did.
Oh,
And John passed a few years ago,
yep.
and he was one of the most incredible coaches, educators in the fitness space. And I had the opportunity to meet him, and I never took it because I was too afraid. And so I will say, like, that experience kind of shaped the way that I look
Yeah.
at connections, because you never
Yeah.
know.
It's so fleeting, right? Like opportunities, they're yes or no, and they may not come back around again. That
Mhm.
reminds me of, I was just telling Monica this story the other day. When I was in college during my bachelor's, I was doing like a stint in Olympic weightlifting. I had just gotten like my USAW cert, was
Oh
all,
yeah,
oh yeah,
top down approach, baby.
trying to figure it out. But I was having issues with like where my feet started at the pole and where they would end at the catch.
Mhm.
And so I'd been reading a bunch of Dan John at the time and doing kettlebell and goblet squats and stuff like that. And I just started doing goblet squats where I would quickly change my feet and catch
Okay.
in the reception position. So I emailed Dan John and just asked him like, hey, is that something you heard about before? What do you think, that works? Guy emails me back, right? I'm just
Yeah,
random
yeah.
college student, emails me back and said, I'd love to see a video of it and go from there. Sure enough, I said, record it, send a video of it. And Dan John gives me all this feedback, right? Like just the nicest thing in the world
Best.
from someone I crazy look up to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was like my first kind of experience in the strength and conditioning industry of just like reach out to these people. If you have questions, send an email. Almost everyone's, easy to get a hold of, and
Mhm.
just send that question out because you never know, like they'll likely respond.
Yeah, listen, I know of all the people that I've met in the fitness space, I have bad experiences with like two people.
Sure. Yeah.
And guess what? They're the same bad experiences that everyone else has had with the same two people. So just avoid, I'm not going to name drop, but if you're listening, you're a piece of shit. Next Level Strength Co. was founded by lifters for lifters. Andy Huang and John Hack know what it takes to step on the world's biggest platforms, and their gear is built for purpose. I might not compete anymore, but I still train hard and need equipment that supports me. I'm still kind of an athlete, I guess. In any case, I personally love the standard knee sleeves and the ProFlex wrist wraps for a supportive fit that isn't restrictive. And they also make my favorite straps, the Max Grips, which are better than VersaGrips and half the price. Visit www.nextlevelstrength.shop and use code ONEED to save 10% on your order.
We would never do that. You
Never
bastard.
do that. So for anyone listening beyond that, one of the biggest reasons I want to have Dave back on the podcast is I've alluded to a reframing and reshaping of Coaches Corner University. If you've visited the site, you've noticed that our education collective has been offline, and that's because we are completely overhauling it. We have taken all of our education resources and we've taken our community and we have melded it together in a way to create a very interactive and supportive environment for coaches to learn. And we're also launching a new mentorship program on top of, so I've always offered my business mentorship for coaches who want to build a business or grow a business. But
It's
now we're
stellar.
actually
So it's
Oh,
an awesome product.
I appreciate it, dude. Um, and what I've actually done is said, listen, there is a very large gap in the industry where coaches, they know how to market and they know how to acquire clients, but they don't know how to serve them. So for coaches who are lacking on the service delivery side of things, whether it comes to X's and O's knowledge, whether it comes to coach athlete relationship, whether it comes to like fulfilling on your promises within that sales process, we're going to be offering mentorships in a few different avenues. We're going to have a mentor specifically for bodybuilding coaches. We're going to have a mentor specifically for strongman. We're going to have a mentor specifically for personal trainers. And Dave is coming on as a mentor on the powerlifting side of things, which for those of you who don't know, because he never uses it, Dave has a PhD in coaching. So he's actually more qualified than me as a coach. um, so Dave, what's like your main driver to be involved in a mentorship like this?
I think back on, my own journey in coaching, and I've been coaching in some capacity basically since I was 10 years old. My
Oh,
dad
you started early.
ran, yeah, really early, and my we helped my dad, my brothers, and I do soccer clinics, baseball clinics, right, during the summers and winters, and we were just delegated really early as soon as we were proficient in our sports skill sets to help others,
Mm,
and catch people up. And I was really fortunate to have that early on. And then when I got to strength and conditioning, for me, it was my livelihood,
yep.
and so I couldn't really take like unpaid internship hours and things like that. And so my way of coming up in the industry was through the scholastic side with college and university, getting my master's and then my doctorate. Um, but having limited resources in terms of like what my coaching product should be,
Mm,
how I should be managing client relationships, and my training roster and programming knowledge and all these things. I kind of had to just figure out myself, confer with peers, right, and do things the hard way. And there never really existed anything to like get me caught up to speed with things right from the get go that would really help me out as a coach over the long run.
mhm.
And when I look at this new generation of coaches coming up, I worry for them sometimes because so much of it is, well, here's what my coach gave me. So that's what I'm going to give to everyone that's working with me.
Dude, I
And,
see
and
that
it's
so
rough. And it's
much.
just from not knowing any better because, that's not their relationship with their coach. Their coach isn't there to help them train their other clients.
Mhm,
And that's what I want to be able to provide to these upcoming coaches is like, let's talk about what athlete specific programming looks like, what long-term athletic development looks like. How are you going to work with someone who doesn't have all the same leverages and time to train and just a different life than yourself? Because that's what your coach is writing you training for, is you. So how do
mhm.
you adapt this training model to people that are not you? And I see a lot of struggle with that.
Yeah, I think we're in an age right now. There's a few really key points I want to hammer home in our conversation today because number one, the ability to form relationships with your clients is going to be the delineating factor in your success in your business. If someone wants any answer to any question, they can go get it. They just have
Yeah,
to prompt any AI platform, and that AI platform will give them a very robust answer.
sure.
And to be fair, the answer is going to be like, as long as they can prompt it well,
Yeah, it'll
give
be
it
close.
context, it'll be close. The problem is that if that's what they have access to, they're looking for something different. And what
Yeah,
they're looking for is to be able to have someone on the journey with them and invested in them and kind of guiding them along that process so that they can collapse time and not, program hop or, jump from idea to idea. That's what a coach is going to be. And I see a clear gap in the way education in the coaching realm is being handled
Yeah.
because everybody is trying to provide the one system or the one answer. And
Right.
just like you said, you have this. Mike Tashir is a fantastic example because
Absolutely.
Mike is a phenomenal coach. But if you look at all the coaches who have come through his tree, they are all Mike Tashir light.
Yeah.
They're just diluted version of RTS or emerging strategies. They don't have any other tools in their toolbox. Then you look at coaches like, uh, oh man, you know what? I'm not going to name drop. I'll use myself as an example. I have
Sure.
had many different powerlifting coaches. I've had
Yeah.
many different strength and conditioning coaches who I've worked under. I've also read a ton of books. I've done multiple certifications. My toolbox is very robust. And what
Yes.
I've learned is that I know what questions to ask to apply the proper tool to the client in front of me. But if I only had a hammer, if I only had RTS, or if I only had
Yeah.
emerging strategies, everyone is a nail. And unfortunately, that's not the case. At that point, you're no better than an AI.
Totally. And you're limiting like your potential client base so much because you're going to only be able to work with lifters that can handle being nails.
Oh, yeah. You
And
get that
you're,
like survival bias.
yeah. 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 Exactly. Right. Like Bulgarian training. You know, like that's like you can have a niche and you can have a brand to
Yep.
your training. Absolutely. But like you said, the best part about being educated and knowing all these different things is that question. You
Mhm.
know what question to ask, when to ask it, because it's going to give you exactly what you need to correct the situation. And even if you don't know how to fix it, having the question and having the client's answer, now at least you can use your peers, your contacts,
Mhm.
refer them out to someone know will have that specific answer so that you make sure you're staying in your scope of practice as a coach.
Yeah, I actually had an exchange today with one of my clients where so she's about to compete in Canadian nationals,
Yeah.
US CPL Canadian nationals, so IPF, and she was wondering why I didn't have her doing a heavy board press today when
Mm,
she's competing Saturday. Or sorry, today is Wednesday. She's
yeah.
competing Friday. Typically, 2 days before her heavy bench session, we would do a heavy board press. That was our training. And she's like, hey, why aren't we mimicking training? Because I've increased my top single every time we've done this. Shouldn't we mimic the same thing heading into the meet? And I said, that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
Because if you ascribe to an emerging strategies approach, that makes total sense because this trend happened week over week. As we approach a meet, as we approach a heavy training day, we do a heavy board press 48 hours in advance. Cool. I asked her, I said, when in training have you been traveling across the country? When have you been not sleeping well? When have you been walking 15,000 steps and coaching the day before?
Yeah.
And she said, well, never. I said, yep, for sure. So we're also trying to decay fatigue to put the best total we can on the board. Is it worth the potential fatigue accumulation from this heavy effort 48 hours in advance of the time that you're trying to perform? And she said, you know what? You're right. It's much safer to take a lighter attempt, work on technique, decay
Yep.
fatigue, and then move in. I said, it was a great question. And that's a
Yeah.
conversation you have with your client because, like, to her point, she's a coach. So obviously she
Yeah.
knows what she's doing. That could have been a reasonable solution to peaking her for a meet.
Yeah.
But I have to
If she
know
wasn't
what tool.
traveling and
Yeah, exactly. I have to know what tool to use within that scenario. And I think learning that with clients without any guidance, you're going to make mistakes. Clients are going to be upset. Mentorship to me has one rule, and that's to collapse time.
yes.
If I
Yeah.
if I had somebody in my ear when I was coming up all the time to be like, hey, these are the circumstances, these are your options, make the best decision you can. And ultimately, she could not PR. She's on pace
Sure.
to PR, but she might not PR. If she doesn't, cool. Well, we know this approach doesn't work for her,
Yeah.
and we can try something different the next time. And so, like, to me, like, that is the true value of a mentor, is to help you
Yes.
understand the big picture of things, help you communicate with your athlete in a way that involves them in the process and provides autonomy, but then make the most educated decision to put them in the best position to succeed.
Yeah. I think like, especially in that same vein, like you're so rarely wrong for doing something conservative, right? And just not going all out for broke, right? Hard as you can all the time. It's the same thing with like attempt selection, like you can pick that big third and maybe get it, right? Add an extra couple kilos to the total, or you can get that third is there and build that total throughout the day. And there's different times for each one. But, I tell Jeff and Monica, my two coaches under ops, all the time, like if you are back and forth and you don't know what to pick, right? Pick the conservative number. And
Always.
at the very least, right, they'll smoke it and you can say, cool, we got more in us next time. And that's always a better feeling.
With let's come back to the AI question here, because I
Yeah.
think it's a really important topic to discuss. So obviously AI is growing like crazy. Where do you see the gap, or maybe where do you see where young coaches can establish, like, when it can establish themselves to take advantage of what's missing?
Of what's missing in AI.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to your communication skills with your lifters and the standards you're holding them to. I think a
Mm.
lot of times, with a young coach that's not quite sure of themselves, they have a hard time, telling lifters like, that was a little high, or that wasn't quite a long enough pause, or this technique's a little screwed up. We need to make some adaptations, some changes, work on some things. They have a hard time holding their lifters to the competition standard, and then they get, you know, weird results at competition. It's not always, what they had planned for based off the program. And at the same time too, when, we're looking at using AI to like build someone a program and things like that, I think it can take away some of the critical thinking skills
Hmm.
of how they want to troubleshoot certain issues. And they might get locked into either the biases of the AI system and what it's reviewed, or their own biases, especially if they're not prompting the AI to check against their biases and things like
Right.
that. And so they kind of get stuck in the same problematic loops and run into the same issues over and over again, even though, they're doing the majority of things right, but they lack a lot of those soft skills in using the information they have either with AI or with their standard of execution with their lifts. I see especially the standard of execution like get really, really sloppy with young coaches, and they just don't know the value of maybe you don't add weight this week. Maybe you
Mhm.
try and hit a PR in a way that's not adding load to the bar. Maybe it's an execution based PR for that lifter and how that develops a lifter over the long term versus getting them as strong as they can be at that moment, but they don't have a great technique or skill set base to climb higher. And then we start working with overuse injuries or compensations or things that end up taking longer once they've reached that natural peak to sort out and then climb higher.
That's a really interesting point. I never actually thought about that. Like, I don't deal with a lot of young coaches on an
Yeah.
X's and O's perspective. Um, what are maybe some other blind spots or areas that you feel young coaches should look to lock in?
Um, let's take. squatting, let's just do an example with squat.
Okay.
Let's talk about hand position in the low bar, right? And trying to get that bar. I remember when I first discovered low bar, right? I'm reading Strong Lifts by Ripito and everything, and or Starting Strength. That's what it was. And you hear about this low bar position. Oh, this is going to be amazing. I'm just going to jam it super low down on my back, right? And you do a couple sessions like that, and it's elbows, elbows starting to hurt a little bit, shoulders starting to hurt a little bit. And rather than thinking of bar placement as a spectrum, it's
Mm-hmm.
very black and white thinking. High bar,
Mm,
low bar, right? There's nothing in between. My hand position is the same, whether the bar's lower or the bar's higher. They never think about how the adjustments in their hands are going to affect that external rotation, how it's going to affect the shelf, or even okay, if low bar hurts my shoulders, elbows, and wrists, what do I need to work on specifically with my accessory work, with my mobility work over time to get that position to a place that doesn't have pain? Because how many people do we know that just embrace elbow tendonitis or aggravation from their low bar squat, right? And it's just like, oh, it's going to happen. Like, well, yeah, I mean, possibly, on your very heaviest things, but that's not something, in my opinion, you should be struggling against week in and week out, right? On
yeah.
top of, so yeah, what I tend to see with younger coaches now is a really big focus on specificity for
Mm.
specificity's sake, and not understanding all the ways we can aid specificity with some variations or some work outside of the barbell lifts.
The supplement industry can be a really scary place to navigate for many people, and that's why we partnered with TC Nutrition. TC is a Canadian company, which means it's very polite, and it was founded on providing the best quality products to help fuel your workouts and your active life. I used their Batch 27 pre-workout and the Complete Isolate long before they became a sponsor, and I have no issues recommending them to the clients I work with. Visit www.tc-nutrition.com and use the code ONEED to save 10%. That's a phenomenal point. So let's keep going on this idea of specificity for specificity's sake. So if we look at volume, intensity, and frequency as a spectrum, obviously we know that they're not mutually exclusive. So if I
Right.
increase volume, I can't increase intensity and frequency at the same time. How often do we need to dose that specific exercise? If we know that
Sure.
that specific exercise irritates the body, how often can we dose it? Or how can we complement that movement with assistance work, or how the
Yeah.
other lifts training impacts your ability to perform that other lift, right? So if
Totally.
I'm benching with an ultra wide grip multiple times a week, it's going to impact my ability to externally rotate that shoulder because I'm training in a chronically internally rotated position. And I think where I see the gap, as you're saying it, is it's not necessarily in the knowledge of how to program the lift specific
No.
or how
Yeah.
to make someone stronger. It's how to look at the big picture of the entire training intervention and be creative in the way that you dose your intensity, frequency, and volume to allow that lifter to progress over the long term. Obviously, we
Yeah.
know that the more often we can perform a lift and the heavier we can lift it, the stronger the athlete's going to get. But that's going to vary based on whether I have a 130-pound female or I have you in front of me at 285,
Yeah.
squatting over
280,
seven,
but
pulling. Oh, great. Congratulations. If you're squatting over seven, pulling over seven, and benching over five,
yes.
you're going to have different needs than a beginner 130-pound female
Sure.
who can probably Gumby herself into a low bar position where the bars are hips.
Yeah.
You know what I
And I
mean?
find too that, like, especially, excuse me, especially with like that over specificity, right? They won't end up training different stances,
Mm,
different barbells, different variations. Like, a squat is a squat in a lot of the ways. And when they start getting overly specific, they won't think of a high bar squat as being a same squat pattern as a low bar squat, as being a same squat pattern as an SSB or a camber bar, right? It's too far away from what they want to be good at. and they don't understand like the value in having someone perform technique work, right? Outside of their competition stance, outside of their competition widths, positions. It's not as different as it may seem. And especially if it's something that can help you manipulate load in the long run, like I think it's a great thing to give beginners a whole bunch of different ways in which to
Yeah.
squat once they know what a squat is. Cool. Like it doesn't have to just be that barbell. Give them a kettlebell, give them a belt squat, right? Like there's these principles are at play every time you create movement at the hips and knees.
One of the things that like it just boggled my mind. I noticed this a few years ago. So if you are working off of a competition back squat, your high bar is probably 90 to 95% of your max. Your
Yeah,
SSB is probably 85 to 90%. Your front squat is probably 75 to 80%.
sure.
And then, so like every variation has a different proportional absolute
Yeah.
intensity as it relates to the comp squat. It blew my mind how many young coaches could not grasp that you could perform an RPE 10 single on a lift that was not as absolutely loaded as a comp squat and have carryover.
Oh, yeah. Totally, right? And even then like if your numbers on those variations aren't at those percentages,
Yeah.
how much of a carryover you get from that, right? Bringing those weaknesses up. Because what are those weaknesses, right? It's your ability for your upper back to hold shape. It's the ability of your bracing to stabilize, right?
Mhm.
Understanding that, as you start doing strength sports more and more, your competition lift isn't going to be what you do day in and day out. Some days you might have to widen your stance a little bit in order
Mhm.
to move properly. Some days you're going to bench with a closer grip because your shoulder's feeling a little wonky. You have to be able to move and train throughout a whole spectrum, right, of positions and understand those things. And when you can do that, your knowledge as a lifter just explodes.
So, how can we facilitate that level of critical thought with young coaches?
I we were having a conversation the other day on kind of like that same thing, like load management via
Mhm.
variation. So I was talking to one of my lifters. We were talking about, you don't always have to be in your competition width,
Mhm.
especially as we're warming up on bench press. If you want to start a little bit closer gripped, and hit your triceps just that little bit extra, right? And then as you need to for the weight, move your hands wider. But if you're always doing something just a little bit closer gripped than normal, right? When you go back out to your competition position and find your groove, you're going to automatically be stronger because you've reduced range of motion, right? And you have better leverage against the bar, but you've been training it the hardest way.
Mhm.
So I like to think of it, almost like Dragon Ball Z, where they're in the gravity chamber, right? You've been doing things the hardest way possible. By the time it comes to competition and we're in a specific phase, it's going to feel so freaking easy. Like going to a straight bar after a bunch of Duffalo work that's pushed me forward. I get under a straight bar and I'm just upright as all hell, and it feels like cake.
I learned that. I learned that from training with Jay Nera. Jay would warm
Yeah.
up if he was squatting. He would warm up to 4 plates with front squats.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Isn't
so I
it? And then just switch right to the back after.
yeah, that
Isn't
first
that
that
so impressive to watch someone do?
well, here's the thing. That first single at 500 after front squatting 4 was so bad because his shoulders were so tight, especially as he got bigger and bigger. But
Sure.
listen, I did it for a while and I've never met someone with a big front squat that didn't have a massive back squat.
Totally. Totally. I
And
mean,
I use
you
it
look
all the
back at
time.
those old Shaco workouts, right? And that front squat was a huge part of those early training blocks, was doing front squat before you benched.
Front squats, stiff leg deadlifts.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the Finnish deadlift program?
Oh yeah. And then the Mag Ort one too.
Yeah, the stiff leg deadlift twice a week was it just annihilated my back.
But
But
I
listen,
mean,
I pulled the PR.
talk about making a bulletproof low back,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely. Um, Dude, I'm really excited for your involvement in Coach's Corner. Like we're gonna have all the other mentors
Absolutely.
on, but I definitely want to leverage like the coach athlete relationship here since that is your bread and butter.
Yes.
What are we missing? Like what are young coaches missing when it comes to the coach athlete relationship? Like
I,
how can they do better?
I think it's something you've brought up a couple times in the mentorship, right? Is like over deliver,
Mm,
right? Under promise and over deliver on your product. You can't be you have to treat it like it's important. And so if you're taking multiple days to get back to people,
oh,
or you know, check-ins are late, or it doesn't run as a streamlined service, like cool programming sent out on these days every single, you know, month, week, whatever it is, it needs to be professional. And when you just treat it like you're just texting your buddies, you know, and if you don't write back, it's no big deal, like you're leaving someone hanging. And the
mhm,
last thing a client who's paying you to coach them, right, it's one thing if you're doing rec sport, you know, or high school sports and your coach, you know, is ignoring you a little bit or not giving you all the time. It's a totally different thing when you're paying someone money for them not to respond to you or not seem invested in what you're doing.
mm,
And there's no quicker way to kind of sour that relationship than having a bad communication schedule, something that's not consistent, something that you do not adhere to the majority of the time. You know, we talk about coaches like being able to step away from their business and give themselves a break. That's after busting your ass
yeah.
for years on end, right? You don't get a break, you know, your first 5 years and just, you know, need to take a couple weeks off and they'll figure it out kind of thing. Like you got to figure that out. You got to figure out how to be able to care the whole time because, you know, especially like your early clients, like those are the ones you're going to be giving the most time to.
Mhm.
And if you get those early clients to stay on with you, you know, for years at a time, like I'm almost with a decade with Tanaya, right? Like
Yeah, I'm over a decade with a couple of my
yeah,
clients.
like there, I've got a couple now, and it's just people really underestimate what a coach athlete relationship looks like after that much time. Like the
Well,
way you know each other's moods and schedules throughout the year with their work and how their bodies have evolved over time. Like the longer you're with a coach, the better that coaching should be getting. But you have to like push hard at the beginning.
I think that speaks too to like how your business systems create the communication and create that relationship. So
Yes.
you mentioned communication being timely. Well, this is literally what you did your research on. You did your research on
Right.
how soon after or soon before the performance should the feedback be given. I
Yes.
think I see both sides. I see the coaches who take too long to respond, and then the coaches who think they need to respond immediately.
Sure.
Speak a little bit on maybe the cost of both of those equations. I'm sorry to interrupt the podcast, but unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard a lot about peptides. I believe that as a coach, it's important that I'm as informed as possible as I can be about anything in this industry that my clients might be interested in using, and it's equally as important that I can guide their decision making in the safest way possible. That's why I've partnered with X Factor Labs. They're a US-based supplier of high-quality peptides, certified for purity, and the same ones that I use myself to help me train hard, recover, and perform at my best. You can visit www.xfactorlabs.in and use code ONEED to save 10% on your order. Back to the pod.
Yeah, I know for me starting out, I was definitely a coach that responded too quick or got
Mm.
not so much responded too quick, but got in the habit for everyone, no matter what my client load, of just trying to be available on my phone as those videos came in. And I think it's a little bit of ego for us as coaches to think we have way more control.
Oh yeah.
than what we think we do, right? And like, oh, if I could just tell them this one thing, it will completely save their session or completely lead to a new PR that day, kind of a thing. And maybe, possibly, but likely probably not. And
Yeah.
instead, it's better to have a summary ready to go of what that big change they need to make is. Take the time to film a really good video, right? Walk them through it, put all those points together rather than be available for them during the session, because you don't want them to have to depend upon you to make weight selections for just regular training.
Hmm. I look at it from like facilitating autonomy.
Yeah.
If I respond right away and I make the decision for the client, then I'm removing their autonomy. And ultimately, we want to be facilitating autonomy in everything that we do. So if I give them a little bit of time to process their decision making, make their own assessment, and then have a conversation rather than apply a prescription, well, then I can go through that process of education. And now they're involved in the decision making, which will give them more
Yes.
ownership over the process. And then over time, they're going to be able to make better decisions, which is going to improve their self efficacy. And then that's going to improve their confidence under the bar when they choose their attempts. That's one thing where I
Yeah.
very rarely will choose a client's attempt. I give
Sure.
them options. I give them
Yes.
options based on where I think they should be. But ultimately, they're the ones who need to load the bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Here's your range. This is what we should be working in.
Yeah.
And if it's within that range, awesome. We're on track. If we're above it, fantastic. Even better. If we're below it, cool. What do we have to solve? And I think a big part too is like on the opposite side of not going too long to review these things and to give your clients feedback, right? Is like that post training reflection that clients go through is huge for motor skill acquisition, right?
Mm,
Being
okay.
able to take some time after their session, type out their message to coach, kind of review how the session went, what were their struggles, what went really well. All of that's going to make them a better lifter. But if they take too long, if they wait 24 hours or even 2 days to give that check in, right? Like that reflection period isn't going to be nearly as powerful than if you were able to have, a good check in period right after training. They're not the same thing. And same thing with like a weekly summary. If you have a weekly summary, that's probably a pretty good to go lifter who doesn't need a whole bunch of changes and a bunch of things. But if you have a new person that, doesn't have the same bar path rep to rep, and they're only getting to hear from you once a week, they get this giant list of things they have to try and work on. That's going to slow motor skill acquisition.
So, and I will highlight again, that's a business system that both facilitates motor learning, but also facilitates your ability to form a relationship. So if you're
Yes.
only doing a weekly summary, number one, they're missing out on that post exercise reflection period and motor learning. But number two, you're missing out on potentially, let's say they're training 3 to 5 times a week. That's
Yeah.
3 to 5 touch points outside of a check in that you can have with that client, which is so impactful, especially if those checkpoints are you asking questions, having
Yes.
discussions. Then your chat with your client ends up being basically a week long text thread. And
Yes.
I will tell you, number one benefit to you as a coach from a business systems perspective is your check-in takes a fraction of the amount of time
It's so much
to
less work.
do when
Yeah.
you've been talking to this person all week. It's, hey man, really enjoyed our conversations this week. Looks like we've unlocked a few things. Here's how I've changed the training to allocate for the changes we need to make. Let me know what you think of them. Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
That's a 3 to 5 minute video at the most if you're going into extreme detail on the changes.
Right. As opposed to having to go through an entire week and hope you didn't miss anything or hope they didn't miss anything with their
Yeah.
review. Yeah.
I'm really big on like if you can find a business system that both increases client engagement, improves results, and shortens your time to delivery, that is the gold standard. The perfect
Absolutely.
example is Loom videos, right?
Yeah.
Like instead of having to type out all the changes that you made and have this massive, email back to your client, you can speak faster than you can type. So I can talk through that, maybe, let's say, 20 minutes of text in
Yeah.
5. Then my client also gets to hear my voice, see my face, listen to my intonations. I can have more of a personal approach. I don't have to be as professional in my language. Now, all of a sudden, that proximity gap that exists in the online space is completely gone.
I think that's huge, that proximity gap and
Yeah.
trying to minimize that as an online coach. And that's hard for people that have never worked in person and kind of
Mm.
seeing like how fast changes and those light bulb moments can happen in person. And you kind of like, for me, I kind of think of that as like my gold standard is if I was working with someone in person, I know exactly how fast I can convey a concept and get them to make the necessary change. Where online, it's a lot more of just trying to walk someone on to that position or to that change over the course of a couple weeks.
You mentioned how the feedback is so much more important when you have a beginner athlete.
Yeah.
I'm gonna highlight how important it is when you have an advanced athlete too.
Oh,
Like, so
absolutely.
so the client who I coached this weekend in the bodybuilding show, he's been my client for almost 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've had 6 years of weekly check-ins, video reviews on almost every training session. And he's made phenomenal, like, if I gave you his pictures when we started together as a fat power lifter, and now to a guy who's missing his pro card by one spot, you wouldn't
So
believe that they're the
close.
same person. Dude, it's the second time he's missed by one spot.
Ugh,
The first time he missed, he lost to a guy who absolutely should have beat him. Like, it was,
sure.
the guy beat him. This time, everyone I spoke to, including a number of pros, were like, dude, he should have won.
Yeah. Got hosed.
And I was like, fuck, man. But so his specific issue is in the men's physique category. They want erectors that project. So,
Okay.
and the way his insertions on his back are, his lower erectors are kind of framed by his high lats. So
Mm,
the only way to train that is through teaching him how to segment his spine. And
yes.
I've been trying to do that virtually
Oh God.
for years. And it's a
Sure.
very nuanced cue.
Oh, totally.
So I actually, after we lost, the next morning, I'm like, listen, be at the gym 8:30. I'm going to show up. We're going to do an in-person session. And we spent the
Fuck
whole
yeah.
session teaching him how to segment his spine in some warm-up drills, carry that over into his rowing and his pull-down movements. And now he has 15 weeks to make improvements to that area. And then I went in and I changed up his program to emphasize those specific movements to target that specific area. And he now has a framework by which he can grow. And that's a very advanced athlete. So now I am
Yes.
communicating with him every single day. Hey, how did it feel? How's your back number one, how's your back recovering? Because we're
Right.
fucking smashing your lower back.
Smoking it.
Um, but number two is that nuance of the coaching now becomes so much more important. So there is like that middle ground where you want the client to be a bit more autonomous and you want them to make some decisions. But if you have a 900-pound squat, like I'm sure with Logan,
Yeah.
like Logan's squatting a
Oh,
grand. If
exactly. And
if
so
he's
it's
off by an
very
inch,
much, yeah. Yeah, it's exactly just like you said, like, how did that feel? How's the swelling going on in your body? Where's it at? Right. He has a condition where his joints fill up with fluid and
mm,
restricts mobility and just it's wild, but he knows how to work through it and what he has to do to be successful there. And so yeah, it's so much more um getting a gauge for where their recovery is at, way more so than any sort of like skill execution. But
mm,
even then, like you said, there can be little things, and I think that's such a good sign of a great coach is they want to work with you in person any chance they can get,
yeah.
right? And just like, man, if I could time this out so that this lifter and I can go train and work together and just go over a couple things, like what a gift that is, for someone you predominantly work with online is just being able to have face to face time like that.
Dude, it was so funny. I showed up at the gym in like my running shoes and running shorts because I'd just gone for a run with him. And his wife was like, "What are you wearing?" I'm like, "Listen, this is the only time I got. I just went
We're
for a
just wearing
run.
here.
Let's fucking go. Don't make fun of me."
This is my
This
coaching gear.
is my
I
this is
gotta
my
have my
coaching
I gotta
gear.
have my thighs clear.
Listen, a pair of shorts that's longer than 5 inches is pants.
It's pants. You don't lift all this weight to not show off some leg.
Well, I don't really lift a lot of weight anymore.
I mean, you
Although
lift more than most people still.
it's true. I did front squat 400 in
Did
flat
you?
shoes. Yeah.
Show off
Front squat at 400 in flat shoes with a pause. And then
with a pause.
yeah, I think I can still squat 500.
I'm sure. I'm sure you could still squat 6. Then you throw some knee wraps on. I bet you
I'm
could.
never throwing knee wraps on again. Not a
Never
chance.
again.
Never, no more knee wraps ever again, and no more back squat ever again.
This is what I always find interesting, right? Is like, there's some people who swear by knee wraps.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people will swear by like, no, I'm never touching those wraps again. That dicked me up.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm in a different chapter of life, right?
Yeah.
So my goals have changed. I'm really excited about running. Like I did this is the second week I've done this, or no, third week. The third week I've done this interval workout. So it's a
Yeah.
15-minute warm up into 5 sets of 2 minutes of RPE 10 and then 4 minutes recovery jog. And so I did the first workout and I did on a treadmill. And I look back, I'm like, whoa, like I ran under 7-minute miles for those intervals. Like that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Then the next workout I did it on a track and I looked, I'm like, the warm up I did for that workout was 1.5 miles. I couldn't run 1.5 miles 6 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I looked at my times today. I matched, it was about around the same distance as I did last week because my warm up was a little slower and my recoveries were a little bit slower because my interval times, I was running 620 miles for those 2 minutes.
Bro.
Yeah. And then I go to the gym and I'm like, all right, well, I just squatted 480 for a double with a pause on the
Yeah.
SSB. And I'm like, hey, that's not too bad.
That's a good day.
But
Yeah.
what I'm getting at here is like, now that I'm in this next phase of my life and training, I don't want my ego to play
Sure.
any role. So if I choose lifts that I know what my PRs are, I'm going to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
The exception is the deadlift because I just really like deadlifting.
Sure. Yeah.
So
You
like
could still.
I'll still deadlift. But yeah, so like squatting has only been front squats or SSB, and benching has only been dumbbells, incline, and close grip. I don't have it in me.
Well, I mean, we were just talking about variations as a means of load management. That's just another component of that, right? It's like, I'm going to make dumb decisions if I pick this lift. This lift is going to keep me safe, and I'm still going to feel like I worked hard.
Yeah. My bench is so bad.
Did just deteriorate as you
So
kind of
bad.
just,
Well, number one, when I was prepping for that meet that I hurt myself at,
yeah,
I was sitting around like 255. So I'm definitely gonna press 200 kilos. I'm sitting like 35 pounds lighter
yeah,
and I'm only doing close grip. I think I'd be hard pressed to press like 335 to 350.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just
At
so
least that's
small.
like almost double body weight.
Jesus. So what's up with you, man? What's next? You said you're doing a team meet.
Yeah, we're doing a team competition in November. So one person will squat, one person will bench, one person will deadlift, go through all 3 attempts, and then the highest team total wins. So I'm gonna bench for my team. I'm gonna do it in the 275 class, and yeah, it's been a long time since I competed at 275. So I'd like to, get pretty close to my last best bench at 275, which I think was around like 420. I think I could probably still beat that.
And you guys are hosting a few seminars?
Yes, we are working on putting together a powerlifting seminar with Olympia Barbell.
Okay.
And then we're working on getting the rest of them sorted out for the rest of the year.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
be sure to send me that over. I'll definitely let people know where they can find you.
Fuck yeah.
Dude, I appreciate your time today. This was great.
This is awesome, Paul. Thanks for
Have a
having me
great,
on, bud.
my pleasure, man. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you in the next one.